Hey, welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddart. Fired up, excited today about our guest, Mike Ciorrocco. He's also known as Mikey C. He's a big-time player in the lending space out of South Florida, does some incredible things. You're going to love what this man does, not only in the mortgage space, but in helping people see and pursue their own potential. There's a lot in common between me and Mike. So let me just remind you the purpose and passion of this show is to help you think bigger. As you do, your activities change, and as your activities change, your results start to follow, and then you can have a bigger impact on the world. My passion is on helping people tap into that untapped potential. I believe that the greatest untapped natural resource out there is human potential. And Mike and I today are going to help you tap into that, which you're missing out on, that untapped human potential inside of you. Let me give you a little background on C-Roc, as he's known. He's a motivator, a facilitator, dynamic public speaker, and a fierce friend and coach. At his core, he's a grinder. This guy gets after it. I hear him on mentoring calls. He and I both are being mentored by Grant Cardone. And I hear him light a fire, not only in his own business, but also on the mentoring calls. It's really fun to see. That actually has led him to inspire others to see the greatness inside of themselves. Does this sound totally similar to like what I'm all about? I love this. Mike is a manager at Nations Lending, a residential mortgage company. He and his three best friends have built one of the most profitable divisions within Nations Lending from the ground up, helping their clients find the ability from a financial standpoint to purchase their dream homes. In addition to that, he speaks to thousands of real estate agents. He's a thought leader. As you can see from the studio behind him, and on his hat, he's asking the question, what are you made of? So Mikey C, I want to welcome you to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show today. Appreciate you taking the time. I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about today.
Let's go, Justin. Let's make it happen, man. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you invited me on your show. Yeah. And let's blow this thing up, man. Let's provide some great content.
Let's do it. I'm excited. So let's start off by talking about the mentorship with Grant Cardone. Was not inexpensive, right? Tell me why you decided to invest in yourself and your own business, specifically in the 10X mentoring program.
Well, first of all, I got to correct you, bud. And that's part of us having one-on-one, like each of us accountability, hold each other accountable. It's not a lot of money. I think it was a $997, right? It's not a lot of money, dude, because listen, the thing is that when people see $997, $1,000, they're thinking small, right? So that's one of the biggest things that since I've been following Grant for about 2 years now, one of the biggest things that he's taught me is that I'm thinking too small. He thought too small, and that's why he's sharing it with everyone else. And so I started thinking to myself, okay, that $997, like for example, with this mentor program, $997, right? What is it getting me? If I don't do it, what is it costing me? Yeah. And what I found out, by the way, with the mentor, there's a lot of stuff that goes along with it that we found out once we got in there. But prior to knowing what it was all involved in the networking and all the benefits from it, I thought to myself, what is it costing me not to be in this? And so I switched my thinking, right? And but the thing is that one of the lessons that we learned is that when you go to a mentoring program, you spend money on something, or if you have a big goal, you go share it with someone, and then you see their reaction, right? Do you remember him going over that? And hey, listen, I'm mentoring by Grant Cardone. It's $997, and I'm learning a lot and this and that, and just shut up. And then you see, you see the response, and then you can figure out where people's heads really are and whether you want to be around those people that much. Because the people that say, wow, man, really tell me more about it, or, oh, I hope you do great with it, those are the people you want to be around. But the people that said, what, you did what? $1,000 for what? To a mentor? Come on, man. Get them out. Remove that. That's what I always talk about, removing all obstacles. I have goals in mind for myself that are big. And if I shared it with you guys, you might think I'm crazy and might laugh, because a lot of people do laugh at my jokes, or my goals. And those are the people that aren't going to ride on my plane when I get a plane. That's what I always say to myself. So sharing your goals with people is one of the things we learned, and then removing the obstacles, because people are obstacles. Most of the time it's the people that are closest to you that are obstacles. So these are some of the things that I learned in it. But I was in it. And then the thing is, we get to network in before the call and after the call. And that's how we met.
It's true. I want to put an explanation point behind what you just said there. Is that you're right. Everybody looks at like, how much does it cost you to do something? Whereas you said, what does it cost me not to do it? I have a coach who said, what's the cost of the cost? Actually had somebody at one point point this out. He said, how much did you make last year? And then he said, take $1 million a year and subtract that from what you made. Subtract what you made last year from $1 million. And he said, okay, let's say, just for easy rounding purposes, let's say it was $200,000. He said it cost you $800,000 last year to not know how to make $1 million. Isn't that a great way to look at it? It's
absolutely, man.
It's like that $1,000 mentoring program. All of a sudden, isn't that expensive when you start to realize how much is it costing me to not know how to make more money? And I think for real estate agents, which are our common audience, right? There's sometimes a lack of wanting to invest in themselves, right? Is that I can't, it's a hyper focus on the bottom line, as opposed to what Grant teaches, which is look at the top line. I'm focused on the top line. How do I drive the revenue? And then you start looking at investments as opposed to savings. You start looking at, spending money, not saving money, but spending money that's going to get a great return. That's something that's really shown up in this.
Well, you hear the saying back in the day, it takes money to make money, right? So when you don't know something, the Grant says this one too. When you have know of something, you don't know something. So when you have NO of something, you don't KNOW something. And it's so true. If you don't have any money, you don't know something about money. So you need to figure out how to get money, and you need to learn and figure it out. And the mentor program, what it does is it speeds things up. So the way I looked at this, Justin, is I can do things on my own, which I have in the past. I started a mortgage branch and then a division, and I did it on my own without hardly any mentoring, which I didn't KNOW, right? I didn't know better. So what happened is that it took me a lot of time and money to get us to where we are today. Way, 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 way more than $997. So you're going to spend money on a mentoring program or being with a mentor or learning or classes or knowledge. You're going to spend a certain amount of money, but I guarantee you that you're going to spend more time, which is money, and a lot more money not getting a mentor or not investing in yourself, and you have no idea what that's going to cost. And I can guarantee you that it's probably 100 times more than you spend on a mentor or education as far as, on money.
100%. It's interesting. I think about that with different websites and funnels that I've tried to build myself. And I get to the end and I still don't like it. I still don't use it. And it's the opportunity cost, right? The scarcity side of me is I'll just build this and save a couple $1,000s to not pay someone or not hire someone to do this. But the opportunity cost of not spending time where I'm great, spending time where I can generate revenue. Instead, I'm doing things that other people are proficient at and great at. Yep. And I'm watering down and diluting down my own value to the marketplace by trying to save money, right? By trying to not invest in things that are going to propel me to the next level. Again, I see it all the time with clients of I can't afford a transaction coordinator. I've got to do my own paperwork. I can't afford to have a buyer, agent. I can't afford to have this and that. And it's you can't afford to not have one. Right. As long as you're reallocating that time that you're now saving towards revenue generating activities. If you did that, you'd be oh, wow, I haven't realized how expensive it has been for me to not have these great people around me, these great systems around me, these outsourced options around me.
Yeah, let's take a step back for a minute, because one thing I know for a fact that when we do a podcast or we do anything, in order to connect with people, we got to tell them where we're from a little bit, right? And we gave a little bit of intro with where I'm from, but I need to share this with your listeners and with you because I want to make sure people understand where I'm coming from and what drives me.
Sounds great.
When I was 11 years old, and I should have did this up front, I apologize, but when I was 11 years old, I was living with my dad for 3 years at that point. I came from a broken home. I didn't know my parents together ever. And it was always a every other weekend type thing when I was with one of the parents, right? Well, when I was 8, I decided to live with my dad. And I went through 3 years of basically hell. Not physical, psychological and emotional abuse. I wasn't physically abused, thank God. But there was a bad environment. And when I was 11 years old, I decided to move back with my mom. And, this is common to a lot of people. It's not a unique story. It's more ordinary than unique. However, that's why it's so powerful, because people can connect to it, because they can relate to it. And when I told my dad I wanted to move back with my mom, my dad being my hero, had a masonry business. That's why I have the bricks on the logo back here. Had a late masonry business, laid bricks, laid block, poured concrete. He always had $100 wad of cash in his pocket, right? He did well for himself. And I always looked up to him for that wad of cash. He always would show it. And when I decided to move back with my mom, my dad basically gave up on me. He said, "Are you sure you're going to live with your mom who's not that well off? You know, I'll tell you what." And he pulled this wad of cash out and ripped a $100 bill off and crumpled it up and threw it at me and said, "You're going to need this when you're living on the streets with your mother one day." And now, remind you, I'm 11 years old, right? And I'm feeling like I'm the one that did something wrong when I'm trying to make something better for myself and get out of a bad culture environment. I didn't know the word culture back then. And at that moment, besides being destroyed and just rejected, you know, by my hero, I'm stubborn to a fault, Justin. So at that moment, I decided, you know what? You're not going to be right, pal. I'm going to be a better father than you. I'm going to be a better husband than you. I'm going to be a better businessman than you. At 11 years old, I made that commitment to myself. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just decided at that moment, he is not going to win. So every part of my life since then, I've been trying to prove that point and hit that commitment. And number two, I wanted to help people that have been through that same situation that have been given up on by their father or someone. And so every time I go through a tough time, a setback, things aren't going my way, I always refer back to that and saying, hey, man, you got to push through. You got to overcome. You're not letting that sucker win. And I love him to death. I don't talk to him now, not by my means. And if I saw him, I'd give him a big hug. But I'm not letting him win. And so I drive back on that. And that's where this What Are You Made Of movement came from. And I want to try to encourage every single person to look back at your life and find something just like that you can drive off of and you can think about when things get tough for you. Because if you don't have that, man, it's really difficult. Life can get difficult, you know? Yeah. And so I wanted to share that with your listeners, because I want them to understand where my drive comes from, that the stuff that I'm sharing and the stuff that I learned in the 10X Mentor and the stuff that you learned, it really doesn't matter if you're not going to apply it and you don't have some kind of driving force behind it. So I just wanted to share that with you before we went forward.
That's a beautiful story, man. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that you and your dad aren't in communication. I think that's his loss, right? I think I actually once heard a story of a father who was kind of in a similar spot, and the son really couldn't understand, like how could my dad do this to me? And like he was a spiritual guy, and he just had thought about it, prayed about like why would my dad like walk out of me like that? Like why would he not have contact with me? And he said, like, I felt like the answer didn't come. Like, it just, like, I couldn't get it until I had a child. And then once I had a child, I had a place to receive that. Like, I could get it. And the answer came is that it was his loss. Like, he was the one that was missing out. And at that point, I got it because I was a dad. And I was seeing that, you know, sure, I would have benefited by having my dad around, no doubt. But really, the one who missed out the most, you know, was the father who wasn't able to be a part of his.
Yep.
So it's inspired to hear that you, despite not having that you've actually used his influence and his impact to inspire you to go on to do great things. And I think, you know, that's an interesting way to look at life, is that, you know, depending upon how you want to go about life, you can look around and find good or bad things and use them as a crutch, as an excuse as to why you didn't do something. Or like you just did, you can say, look, I had a bad thing happen, and that's actually what's inspired me to go on to find the greatness within me. Like, what about, you know, if you go about life that way, no matter what happens, whether it's a great thing or whether it's a tragedy, you turn into good and you use it as fuel, right?
Yeah. As you're saying that, you know what? I just got an idea. I got an idea, man. And I never thought about this way before, and the way this aligns with our business. Do you hear when we're on the mentor call and somebody will call, ask a question? This past call, they said this. Hey, I'm trying to get this agent, let's just say, or I'm trying to get this prospect, and I've tried everything. I've done this, I've done that, phone call, visit. I even sent them pizza, but nothing's working, right? And what the answer was, what was the answer? Do you remember?
I don't remember this exactly.
Remember they said, hey, dude, you're worried. Everything's working.
I do remember this guy. Yeah, keep going.
And number two, your funnel's not big enough. You got one person that you're worried about. Grow your funnel. Grow your prospects, right? Yeah. So here's how I just hit this. This hit me when you were talking about that. I was so fortunate when I was 11 and I left my dad's house, went to my mom's. Dad. I had a stepdad. His name was George. He died about a year ago. And I'm not his blood kid, right? But he took me in like a father, like the best father you could possibly have. Okay. But what happens is my dad gave up on me, right? And that's like a customer. If you think about this might be totally screwed up, but I'm just telling you like I feel it, right? If he gave up on me and that was like a customer that gave up on me and I didn't want to focus and just sit there and worry and drive this, guess what? I went out and found a new one. You know what I mean? So it's a little warped, I'm sure, but it just hit me like, you know what? Like you said, his loss, right? That's the prospect's loss. You do everything you possibly can to get a prospect. and then don't stress and worry. Go get some more. Too many people get hung up on one prospect, and if they do everything they possibly can and that prospect still doesn't come around, they sit there and mope, and they let it affect the next transaction, the next prospect, the next relationship that they can have. And that's one thing that I didn't do. So I noticed that I really took hold to my stepdad, George, and we got like this. He was hard on me. By the way, I was 11 years old. He was busting my ass, man. He would drive me, and I hated it. He was hard on me, but we were tight. And that's similar situation to going out, finding new relationships, go out, find a new. It happens in girlfriend and boyfriend situations and husband and wife situations as well. Somebody loses a relationship with someone, then they get all down in the dumps and this and that instead of focusing on the next relationship that they need to have. So I'm glad you said that, because
I do remember that answer, and it was like a total paradigm shift, because like what the questioner was asking is like, what else can I do? And they just went about it a different way. It's like you're solving the wrong problem. You've got one prospect. That's the problem. The problem is you need 100 of them.
Yep.
And you need to be delivering big value to 100 of them. And of the 100 of them, you'll find the one with whom your value resonates. And that kind of down that thread, that's been a really big aha for me. And I think Grant touched on this, in our last call, which was everything works. And you mentioned it earlier, right? Everything works, even the 3 non-calls. And here's a prime example of this. One of my best clients right now, we showed up down in San Diego, right? I'm in Portland, Oregon, down in San Diego at a real estate coaching event. I'm sitting by the turnstile waiting for my luggage. I look over and there's Brad. I'm like, hey, Brad, how are you? And he like looks at me and like sheepishly, he's like, oh man, hey, how are you? Good to see you. I didn't expect to see you here. And he says, I think I owe you a call, like maybe 4 or 5 calls. And, I honestly didn't think that he was even noticing or that he was making the connection. At that event, he and I spent some time together, got him as a client. He's been a great client ever since. Those 4 or 5 calls that I thought were falling on deaf ears, maybe even irritating him, were in his brain, working on him. He knew that he was going to get back to me. He just didn't know when. And I think, again, we tend to discount activity, and we put too short of a time frame on it. Is that if somebody doesn't respond immediately, then it must not work, and we must move on, right? Yes, we ought to have, like you said, have a wide funnel, but we also ought to have a wide funnel of activities that we're utilizing on people, because the reality is all of our lives are already busy. And to make time for somebody else, a new relationship, to make time for a new partnership, it takes time and it takes capacity. And you have to be persistent in adding real value consistently in order for someone to be like, okay, not like, I can't say yes yet, but I've got to make space here because this person's persistent. They must have real value. I've got to make space to be able to evaluate and then make space to actually go into business with them. And again, I think we discount that. And that's, I think, at the essence of the 10X rule. That's at the essence of what Grant's teaching, is that you can have everything you want if you're willing to do enough activities. Most people aren't. But if you catch that vision and you really double down and start doing enough activities, you're going to start to see that it's not a very crowded environment when you start to do that, because most people will desist
exactly
a long time ago.
Here's the thing, man, and Jared said this, and I use this all the time. We plant seeds and we water them, and you just water that seed until it starts to grow. And the thing is that if you have one of something, Grant said this too, if you have one of something, you'll start to hate it. You'll start to resent it.
Yeah.
Anytime you have, so anything that's good in life, you want to have multiples of, right? But when you start to hate that person because you're not focusing on other relationships, then you come off the wrong way when you still try to follow up. If you do follow up at all, you come off the wrong way to them. They sense that. Of course, they're not going to work with you. So what you need to do is you need to reach out to the prospect, be creative and do all different things. Stay great attitude, friendly, happy, understanding of why they haven't done business with you yet. Maybe it's because they have a lot of other things on their mind. It's not the right time. They have another partnership already. Timing is a big issue too, because it might not be the right time. But if you stay with it and you keep watering the seed, when that timing comes up, you're there. They're not all going to turn into transactions or relationships. So that's why you need a lot of them. And you got to think big on the prospecting side of things. A bunch of seeds. You want to plant a bunch of seeds. Farmers don't plant one corn seed in the field.
Yeah.
Right? Can we even count how many seeds they actually plant when they plant a field of corn?
Yeah.
If you think of your business that way, man, I'm going to tell you something that made a difference for me. About a year ago, I decided to get known because Grant said, hey, money follows attention. I was sitting at the 10X Growth Conference in Miami, and he put up a graph on the screen, and he showed his Google, I guess it was like his Google activity or trend was going on a graph that was going up. And then it showed his money. It was going up, and it matched that trend, and that hit me. And I'm like, you know what? I've been trying to get known locally in my local market. By the way, I'm in Maryland. I go to Miami because I have a branch there as well.
Okay, I thought you were out of South Florida.
I go to Miami once a month, and I'm in Maryland most of the time, in the Mid-Atlantic region. But I try to get known in Maryland, like not even in Maryland, just in my town or my county, right? And that's what I did for years. And all my people, everybody around, everybody does that. Every single person in your business, my business, real estate, they just do it in their own little town.
Yeah.
I started to think bigger, and I started waking up every morning being obsessed getting known worldwide. And I said, you know what? If I get worldwide known worldwide, locally is not going to be a problem, brother. Locally, everybody will find out, because if I get known throughout South Africa, which, by the way, all of a sudden this started happening when I started thinking this way, getting a podcast, writing a blog, all these different activities that I'm doing. All of a sudden, I'm getting people reaching out from Germany, South Africa, Australia. I was on a podcast in Australia yesterday. Australia is on the other side of the globe. So if you're known globally, you don't have to worry about local. You don't have to worry about that. It takes care of itself. So that's a big, big, big thing that I've come to realize over the last year is, one, whatever you want to do, be obsessed about it. And number two, get known globally. Focus on a bigger target, and all the little targets will take care of themselves, man.
I agree. Think bigger is a very similar strategy, to what I had. And this can maybe kind of parlay into like what our unique value propositions are for agents. I found that in my industry, title and escrow, in fact, you guys are probably not an escrow state, right? You guys probably use attorneys. Is that true?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So here we use like escrow officer, right? So title and escrow are combined under the
Maryland escrow, and Delaware. We're in Delaware too. That's an attorney state.
Okay, got it. So you see both sides. So in my industry, it's very common for someone who's in a business development role within a title company to be a friendly customer service representative, right? How can I help you today? I've got some company tools I want to share with you. I'm going to put you on our company email blast, and it's very common, right? And what I realized is that if I was going to be in conversations with and add value to the biggest producers, then I needed to not only be a helpful vendor, I needed to be a peer, someone who they could look at and say, look, you're a top producer in your industry, I'm a top producer in mine. I think we can learn from each other. And then I said, what if I could actually get really good at some things that they would want to know about, to where I could mentor them, to where they were coming to me saying, teach me how you do that. And so my push and my aim is, how do I become a mentor to my biggest clients and prospective clients, to where they want me to be in their business because of what they're seeing me do. I'm not the liaison to value. I am the value. And to get to me, right, or to get to that value, they come to me, not through me as a pass off to someone in my network. That's helpful too, right? But what can I demonstrate in my business? What can I do? This shows, an upspring of that. It's exactly why I started this. Is I had to learn this digital media space, because I knew that real estate agents are losing business because the massive portals of Redfin and Zillow and Trulia are gaining attention before real estate agents. They're poaching those clients, and they're reselling them in the form of leads to clients. And so real estate agent, very similar to what you're talking about, needs to actually gain the attention of their clients more so than even what Zillow's doing. Because if you're in the brain, if you own real estate in your clients and prospective clients' brain, there's no doubt they're going to use you to buy and sell their own physical real estate. And so how do I gain mind share? That's what I've been all about, so that I can then teach it, right? So that I can teach it to agents. So that's one part of my value proposition. Sounds like it's very similar to yours as well.
Yeah, the thing is, man, the problem is not Redfin or Trulia or any of this. That's all distractions, man. I don't worry about any other mortgage company. I don't even, man, listen, my job is to get known, and I want to learn real estate, which I was a real estate agent before I was in the mortgage business, but I want to learn marketing and real estate better than the real estate agents that we serve. And if I could do that, like you said, then they come to you. And so the problem with real estate agents, and not just real estate agents, mortgage people too, title people, sales in general, is people don't do enough activity. Let's face it.
Yeah.
They don't think big enough, and they don't get known. Those are the three things, reasons. It's not Trulia, it's not Redfin, it's not anything else. It's those three things. And if they would focus on those three things, bottom line, there's a lot of problem in the real estate industry because there's a lot of realtor associations that people belong to, and they go for continuing education, and they go for these workshops and this and that. Not one of them talks about the things that we learned in the 10X mentor group. Yeah. Not one of them. And that's a problem. And we're in the business to make money. and their real estate agents are in the business to make money. So I don't know why realtor organizations don't talk more about making money and show agents how to make money. Obviously, ethics is important. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, you really shouldn't have to teach someone ethics. They should know right is right and wrong is wrong. Do good things happen. Do bad things happen. Don't poach customer. I mean, that's common sense, but they spend too much time on that stuff, and they should spend more time on making money.
Yeah. Well, which creates the opportunity for you and I, right? I mean, if that stuff were common, yours and my value propositions would have to be different. The fact that those associations only teach people how to stay out of jail, right, not get sued, which is good. It's important things to know, but I agree. I think they overemphasize that and underemphasize the fact of why are most real estate agents broke? It's the exact reason that you just described. Is it because, and what Brandon Dawson talked about on the last call, which is most people don't prospect because they don't do it enough, so they never get good at it, get confident enough to really have the conversations. Because again, they're afraid, but it's a self-perpetuating cycle. If you don't do it enough, then it's always going to be scary and you're never going to do it. Whereas if you just start doing it and you move through that fear and start doing it, you'll get good enough to where pretty soon it's like, man, I can really help people. I can get in front of people. I can get conversations with people and be in business with them. And for a couple of reasons. One, because of that skill set actually works. But two, that realtor is saying, man, I need to know sales skills like this guy. Like I need to know sales skills like that gal. Right? You're again demoing what they need to be doing in their own business.
It's attractive.
Yeah.
You know, mindset, positive mindset, success, and attention are attractive, man. And so if we can get that, like, okay, so I know this, and I'm sure you know this, because haven't we been there before where we were like, man, how's so-and-so getting all this business? I'm here struggling. I've been there before. So it's not that I'm just preaching to people. I preach to myself with this all the time. Okay. And I'd sit there, man, they're doing so good. How the heck are they doing that? And meanwhile, I'm sitting in my office talking to myself or talking to my partners about this, instead of going out and doing the things you're supposed to be doing, that the other people that are successful are doing. Getting known, activities, massive amounts of activities, big goals. And, that's something that I know, like I said, because I've been there before. A lot of people hear me preaching and talking about this stuff, and they're like, oh, man, I've been there, bro. I've been broke before. I've been mediocre before. I ain't ever going back. I'll tell you that right now, because once you get a taste of it and you understand it, you want to do it yourself and you want to help other people do it, because you want people around you that are successful in massive action, and nobody's holding you back. Everybody's lifting each other up.
Powerful stuff, man. I want to share quickly kind of my aha from my role play with Grant Cardone. I actually mentioned you in there when I was starting. I was trying to help Grant see that my business was convincing real estate agents to do business with me as opposed to doing business with somebody else. And, at first I got pretty obliterated. I was ho-humming around, and Grant was like, done, calls over. Did everybody see his face? Did everybody see the confidence drop out of his face? Calls over, right? And then he kind of went on this rant at like studying other salespeople. And I was like, okay, you just lit my fire. Give me another shot. Let's go again. And I think I held my own.
Yeah, you did well.
The aha that I had coming from that is what got Grant's attention is when I said, great, congratulations on your 30 deals this past year. You seem like a guy that want to do 50 deals. The people that I work with go from 30 to 50. He was like, wait a minute, stop. Did you just tell me you can get me 20 more deals? I said, yes, I can. He said, great. When can we meet? When can we talk about that? And right. Although at first I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get somebody 20 more deals, that has been occupying my thoughts incessantly since that call of like the big players that I want to be in business with, all other value propositions melt away, regardless of loyalties with their existing providers, of what somebody's either legally or illegally paying for under the table. All of that stuff, it becomes irrelevant if I put another $200,000 in someone's pocket because of the value that I'm bringing. And so that has become my whole focus, my whole value proposition, which is not about being friendlier or even helping them refine a system so that they have a little bit better, life balance. Like, sure, all that stuff's great. But at the end of the day, all that stuff figures itself out if I'm contributing in such a way that 20 more deals, right? In my area, that's
the top line,
right? Exactly. Back to the top line solves all of the other problems that they're facing, right? They can hire out the stuff that's keeping them away from their family, et cetera, et cetera.
Here's a big lesson here, okay? Brandon Dawson tells the story about how he got in touch with Grant and how he started partnering up with Grant, right?
Powerful.
Okay. I would love to partner up with Grant. Matter of fact, I'm going to. But I learned from Brandon how to do this, and then you could take it down and do it on your level, on your local level. You know, he went to the 10X Growth Conference with intention. He wanted to see what was going on there. He wanted to see what people had to say. And then once he bought into it and he understood the 10X movement, understood Grant's legit, he actually filled a stadium with 35,000 people. What happened from that point is that he went back and he paid for diamond access. He paid for access to Grant. First of all, we talk about that in the mentor group a lot. The cheapest way to do things is to pay for access. And he paid for access. And when he was going up to take a picture with him, right? A selfie picture behind they had the 10X backdrop or whatever. Yeah. He said and whispered in his ear, hey, listen, what would I have to do, or what would the process be to go through and explain to you how we can make billions together? I got an idea, something to that effect. Change the ball game. Change the ball game. So if that's how they think, those guys that make hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Why wouldn't we do it on our local small scale at our local level? Quick call, by the way, we're doing real estate agent calls. We always do them. We try to set coffee. We try to make relationships, build relationships. The game changer for us, okay, we used to call and say, hey, listen, we'd love to help you grow your business, help you make your transactions smoother, yada, yada, yada. None of that. You know, half the time work.
Everybody's saying that.
Game changer right here. I text an agent or call an agent and say, hey, listen, do you handle home buyers, or are you just a listing agent? Because a lot of times that would be their objection to us. I'm just a listing agent. I just handle cash buyers. I only do listings. Yeah. And they're so full of crap because all of them, if they had a buyer come across their desk that was ready to buy, they would take them out and show them the house and take that commission. Right. So I text or call and say, hey, listen, do you handle home buyers? Because I have some buyers in your market. Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah. Okay, great. I got to go over the program that we have. I need to set up a call with you. Bang. Never had a no. It's 100% close rate. Never had anything like this before in my life. It goes to that right there, that principle of finding out how to grow somebody's top line. Mm-hmm. And when we do that, we have a proprietary process where we're doing this at our company at Nations Lending. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. And now what we do, and I'm not going to release all of it right now, but what we do is we get them in our ecosystem. Just like the 10X, Grant Cardone's got us all in this ecosystem. Once you buy a book or once you do anything, you're in their ecosystem. Emails, internet, they got the pixels like laser focused on you, right? Yeah. So what I thought and I got from that is, okay, how can I get referral partners, not just agents, but referral partners and our past customers, which we call our power base, into our ecosystem so that they're only thinking about Nations Lending. They're only thinking about C-Roc and his team. They're only thinking about us. That's the idea that we've come up with at Nations Lending. My marketing department, the best in the business, without a doubt. We have some geniuses in there, Howard Lee and his team. And we talk about ecosystems a lot. And I got it from him. And then I also noticed that Grant and then Jarrett were talking about it. And so that's what you want to focus on, is getting that top line growing for people and then bring them into your ecosystem so that they don't have another option. They want to work with you. They want more. They crave more from you, whether it's leads to make their business grow or knowledge where they can make more money or any of that kind of stuff. That's what's needed in the industry. And in order to do that, Justin, you got to get up to snuff on your knowledge and know more about it than they do.
Yeah. I love it, man. Such good stuff. Love hearing about your value proposition, what you're doing. No doubt we have a very bright future implementing the stuff that we've learned from Grant, from each other. I'm going to ask you our final question here as we wrap up. Mike, this has been fun. I'd love to do this all day. But let's finish with this question. You're a big thinker, no doubt. What does a guy like you do to continue to be a big thinker, to continue to expand your possibilities? Teach us. Well,
first of all, I'm human just like everyone else. So I'll have some times where things are working for me and something, I always talk about the two little voices in your head. Something creeps in and says, you don't deserve that. Like, what do you just got lucky there. That's not from work that you did or your abilities. And you have this little voice, and I crush that son of a, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here, man, but I crush that son of a gun, man. I'll step on it because as soon as it starts to creep in, you got to stop it right away because it manifests itself. So when you have two voices, and again, everybody's got voices in their head. You don't have to be crazy to have voices in your head. You talk to yourself a lot. Self-talk support. Look, this has quotes around it. I don't know if you can see it, but it has quotes around it. What are you made of? Because I say that to myself all the time. What are you made of, man? What are you made of? I'm built for this. I talk to myself all the time. But the voice that you need to listen to in your head is very important. And you need to stomp the negative voice. We all have it. And what happens is as long as I do that, and as long as I'm focused on that, I continue to think big. I feel like I'm capable of anything. Now I can't run a 4 minute, probably can't run an under 4 minute mile, like a 3 minute mile. but physically I can get towards it. But anything else that can happen, I always think to myself, I can accomplish that. If so-and-so did it, I know I can do it.
Yeah, they're human.
So
I'm human too. That's
what goes through me. It's all about self-talk, reinforcing constantly, writing my goals down, and then sharing them with people to see who's going to be on my side and who to get out of my life.
Yeah.
Because that's very important. People are so scared to do that. It's harsh. But if your wife or husband or brother or mother or father does not support you in your dreams, like Grant says, they're robbing you. They're stealing from you. And if anybody stole from you, would you want them in your life?
Powerful, man. Powerful. Yeah, I love hearing big thinkers like you. What are you made of? That's powerful. And I think what you're made of has to do with the people around you as well. Like you're saying, is that we can be choosy in who we spend our time with and those people that expand our possibilities. You've done that for all of us today. Mike, I want to thank you for your time coming onto the Think Bigger Real Estate Show, helping expand our possibilities. I would encourage this audience, if you're not yet following this guy, how do they find you, Mike? Like, where do they go to find you?
Well, on IG, Instagram, it's Mikey C-Roc, at Mikey C-Roc with no K, C-R-O-C. And also, I have a private Facebook group called What Are You Made Of with Mike C-Roc, just like that. Cool. And if any of your listeners want to jump in there, I'll go ahead and prove them. Join them in there. We share our stories for inspiring other people. We lift people up. It's all about just building people and finding out what we're made of.
Love it, man. Super powerful. Thank you again for coming on the show today. My final request of everybody, beyond just sharing this out, going and joining Mike's group, are 3 simple words, and they are go think bigger. Thank you today, Mike, for helping us do that. It's been a total pleasure, my man. I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate you, man.
You bet. You too.